Hey guys, there are some amazing icons out there, and Natalie Cole is one of them. She was the daughter of legendary Nat King Cole. She rose to fame in the 70s when she released her debut album, Inseparable, in 1975, which was also the title track. The song This Will Be an Everlasting Love was her debut single. With the popularity of the title track and the single, the album rocketed to the top of the pop and R&B charts, earning her 2 Grammy Awards along the way. The album was a great success, and she won the Grammy Award for Best New Artist at the 18th Annual Grammy Awards. She was the first African American and the first R&B act to win the award. She would win 9 Grammy Awards in her career. She touched a lot of our hearts, but she had a lot of struggles and trouble along the way. She was troubled since she was a little girl and grew up to make some destructive, unfortunate mistakes that she would grow to regret. Natalie Cole was born February 6, 1950, in Los Angeles, California. Her mother was former Duke Ellington orchestra singer Maria Hawkins, and her father was the legendary jazz pianist, singer, and composer Nat King Cole. She was raised in Hancock Park district of Los Angeles. Natalie would refer to her family as the Black Kennedys. She was exposed to many great singers of soul, jazz, and blues. Natalie sang on her father's 1960 Christmas album, The Magic Christmas, and she later started performing at age 11. She grew up with an older adopted sister, Carol Cookie Cole, her mother Maria's younger sister's daughter, her adopted brother Nat Kelly Cole, and her younger twin sisters Timolyn and Casey. Her paternal uncle was Freddie Cole. He was a singer and pianist with a number of albums and awards. Natalie went to Northfield School for Girls. It was an elite New England preparatory school since 1971, known as Northfield Mount Hermon School, after merging with another school before her father died of lung cancer in February 1965. Natalie said her parents raised them to love everybody and not judge. In Hancock Park, the neighborhood where they lived in Los Angeles, they experienced racism. They were the only black family there. Natalie said that they had some incidents where people would put firecrackers in their rose bushes and would burn crosses on their lawn. I read that the Property Owners Association told Nat King Cole that they didn't want undesirables in the neighborhood. They would fire shots through their windows and poison their dog. Natalie recalled a trip to Las Vegas with her father and family when they had to stay at a motel instead of the hotel where her father was performing. A number of celebrities would visit their home, including Lena Horne, Louis Armstrong, and Dorothy Dandridge. She also got to meet Ella Fitzgerald, Frank Sinatra, Peggy Lee, Danny Thomas, and more. Natalie's mother, who wanted to mingle with the high society people, caused Natalie to become disconnected from the black community. She wanted her children to mingle with high society people. She mentioned that her mother, being a snob, isolated her from other black people when she was a child. Natalie wrote that when she became friendly with the black people who worked for them, her mother was appalled. She wanted them to interact with a different society outside the house. She also mentioned that her mother's family thought Nat King Cole was too black for them. In her memoir, she wrote, "For a dark skinned man such as my father to acquire a light skinned woman such as my mother was a real important prize. Your status moved up." Natalie also shared her grandmother's views on black people. She wrote, "She didn't want my mother to get involved with anyone with too many black characteristics because then your children would look funny. It wasn't just my mother, it's the way many black people were raised." I can just imagine the negative impact this would have on Natalie. She was confused about her identity. She didn't start loving herself until she went off to college. She would go to the Black Panther rallies and so on. She said she discovered her blackness and began to love herself after joining the Black Panthers while attending college. Her father, the legendary Nat King Cole, would die of lung cancer in February 1965 when Natalie was 15 years old. And this was a very difficult time for Natalie. Her father meant a whole lot to her. Soon after, she started having a very difficult relationship with her father, with her mother. Natalie needed to find a way to deal with losing her father. She said her mother worked hard to create a controlled exterior. She said she didn't think she ever bawled or cried, and that creates a pocket to put all your stuff into, which soon gets too heavy to carry. A week after her father's funeral, she was in trouble for shoplifting, which embarrassed her mother. So her mother would send her to see a psychiatrist. She did not allow them to grieve and would tell them that crying was a sign of weakness, that they have to move on. When her father got sick, her mother did not tell her that he was seriously ill. The last time she saw him healthy was when he dropped her off at boarding school in Massachusetts. She said an unforgettable silence was what greeted her when she returned home for Christmas in 1964 after her first semester away at school. She said, I rushed to my parents' bedroom only to find my 45-year-old father in a rocking chair, his hair white, his skin ashen. He couldn't get up to hug me. Dad had lung cancer. No one told me he was sick. Mom thought she was being protective. It was a Christmas without parties, with Dad's showbiz friends, without him singing about chestnuts roasting, without any music. Foggy with painkillers, he spoke a little. Terrified to confront this faint echo of the man my father was, I said even less. Back at school, my birthday came and went on February 6th. I got word Dad had a successful operation. Then, the day after Valentine's Day, I got called back to my dorm from class. My house mother was waiting for me in tears. She didn't have to say it. I knew Dad had died, Natalie wrote. She said she barely cried at the funeral and she took one of the roses that blanketed her dad's coffin and tucked it in her Bible. She said she didn't want to go back to school so far away, but her mother was determined to put on a brave face. In a few days, she was back in Massachusetts. She said she would have to learn to forget about her loss. Natalie attended the Buckley School, a private school in Sherman Oaks, California. Then she enrolled in the University of Massachusetts, Amherst. When she went to the University of Massachusetts, she said she was thinking maybe she could be a doctor and help find a cure for the cancer that had stolen her dad from her. She briefly transferred to the University of Southern California, where she pledged the Upsilon chapter of Delta Sigma Theta sorority. She would later transfer back to the University of Massachusetts, where she majored in child psychology and minored in German, graduating in 1972. She said the summer before her junior year, she began singing just to make extra money at first. People noticed. They would ask her to do her father's songs, and she was dismayed. She said she didn't want to be recognized just as the daughter of. She said the few times she would sing one of her father's songs, the crowd would get very emotional, and so would she. It hurts too much to sing words that she could still hear him singing so beautifully in her mind. Then came her senior year. She said maybe it was the prospect of going out into the world, of having to find herself that made her fall. She fell in with the wild crowd. She said she started using drugs. At first, it was just occasionally and nothing too strong, but she progressed quickly to heroin. She said heroin felt like some kind of an answer to pain. She said her career progressed too. But right before the release of her first record, she got busted for heroin possession. She said, I was given several months probation and was able to kick my habit. This Will Be became a major hit, and I won the 1975 Grammy for Best New Artist. Yet that pain in my soul grew worse. I turned to coke. She said sometimes I'd quit using for a while. God, bring me down and I'll never do this again. She would pray, but soon enough I'd want to get high again, she said. Natalie was really going through it. In regards to her music career, she grew up listening to different kinds of music, including Aretha Franklin and Janis Joplin. After her graduation in 1972, she began singing at small clubs with her band Black Magic. Clubs initially welcomed her because she was Nat King Cole's daughter, only to be disappointed when she began singing cover versions of R&B and rock songs. Songwriting and producing duo Chuck Jackson and Marvin Yancey assisted her, and she recorded some songs in a studio in Chicago that was owned by Curtis Mayfield. Her demo tapes led to a contract with Capitol, which resulted in the release of her debut album, Inseparable, which included songs that reminded listeners of Aretha Franklin. Her album became an instant success. This Will Be won her Grammy Award for Best Female R&B Vocal Performance. The singles Inseparable was also a hit. Both songs reached number one on the R&B chart. She won Best New Artist at the Grammy Awards for her accomplishments. The media was basically saying that she was the new Aretha Franklin, which allegedly started a rivalry between the two singers. The feud boiled over at the 1976 Grammy Awards when Natalie beat Aretha Franklin in the Best Female R&B Vocal Performance category, a category that Aretha won around 8 times before, losing to Natalie Cole. Natalie became a star pretty much immediately. In 1976, she released her album Natalie. That album was also a gold success. It had hits like Sophisticated Lady and Mr. Melody. Natalie released her first platinum record with her third release, Unpredictable, which included the number one R&B hit I've Got Love on My Mind. I'm Catching Hell became a popular song for Natalie Cole, though, during her live concert shows. Her star power kept shining through. In 1977, she put out her fourth release and second platinum album, Thankful, which included another signature Natalie Cole hit, Our Love. Natalie became the first female artist to have two platinum albums in 1 year. She would star on her own TV special, which attracted celebrities such as Earth, Wind, and Fire, and she appeared on the TV special Sinatra and Friends. In 1978, she released her first live album, Natalie Live. She was awarded a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame in early 1979. That same year, she released two more albums, I Love You So and the Peebo Bryson duet album, We're the Best of Friends. Those albums did great. They went gold. She maintained her superstar status with her amazing talent. After the release of her eighth album, 1980's Don't Look Back, the trajectory of her life changed. Her career took a turn. Even though she scored an adult contemporary hit with the soft rock ballad Someone That I Used to Love off the album itself failed to go gold this time. Natalie's personal problems, including her drug addiction, began to attract public attention. As a result of that, her career suffered. Natalie wrote that one night in November of 1983, her manager, business manager, and attorney showed up at her door. She said she worked with them for a while, but they had never been to her house. She said, my R's darted from one another. She said, my eyes darted from one to another. What was up? We're worried about you, Natalie, said Dan, my manager. We want you to go into rehab. I felt exposed as if the white powder I was addicted to was all over my face, she said. I crossed my arms. How dare they come into my house and tell me my business? Sure, things have been rough lately. I'd had to let some people go because I was broke. Word had gotten around I was unreliable and I didn't have many gigs. Why do you care? I snapped. Worried you won't be able to make any more money off of me? Dan sighed. Your career could crash and we'd still be okay, he said. But we're afraid if you keep using, you will die. We don't want to be here for that. Natalie had went on to say that she felt like God was clinging to her despite all she had done to push him away. She said, now, finally, in the cold of winter, I realized I couldn't change myself. Only God could change me. And only if I asked with my whole heart. For the first time, God became not just someone to turn to in a crisis. He was there when I shed tears for my father, night after night, the tears that I never shed as a teenager. He was there as I struggled to go off my pain and defiance. He was there as I struggled to let go off of my pain and defiance. He was there when I surrendered myself. Mm. I felt that, boy. In 1983, following the release of her album, I'm Ready, released on Epic, she entered a rehab facility in Connecticut and stayed there for 6 months. In 2000, she released an autobiography, Angel on My Shoulder, where she talked about her battle with the substances during much of her life. At one stage, as an addict, she worked as a prostitute's tout in order to fund her drug habit. She worked for a pimp named Ronnie in Harlem. She was supposed to attract customers who was looking for females to sleep with. She insisted she was not selling her body, she only worked to bring in customers. She was hired as the come on girl who would pique the attention of potential Johns. She said once she had contact, she said once she made contact and Ronnie had concluded the financial transaction, the real business would happen under the bridge without her. There was an alleged incident where her young son Robert nearly drowned in the family swimming pool where she was on a drug binge. So, this happened while she was on a drug binge. It is said that two employees who couldn't swim jumped in and saved Robert, so she had a real struggle with this addiction. Following her release from the rehab facility, she signed with Atco Imprint Modern Records and released Dangerous. In 1987, she changed to EMI Manhattan Records and released the album Everlasting. That returned her to the top of the charts with singles such as Jumpstart My Heart, the top 10 ballad. I Live for Your Love, and her dance pop cover of Bruce Springsteen's Pink Cadillac. That success helped Everlasting reach 1 million in sales and became Natalie's first platinum album in 10 years. In 1989, she released her follow up to Everlasting, Good to Be Back, which produced the number 7 hit, Miss You Like Crazy. That is my favorite song from her. She was an amazing talent, man. I'm telling you. That song became her biggest hit in the United Kingdom by reaching number 2 on the UK singles chart. That album was her only top 10 album in the UK, and it later became certified gold there. Natalie released her best selling album with 1991's Unforgettable with Love on Elektra Records. On that album, she was singing songs that her legendary father, Nat King Cole, recorded, nearly 20 years after she initially had refused to cover her father's songs during live concerts. When Natalie released her album Unforgettable with Love in 1991, it is said that many in the music industry suspected she had gone mad. This was the era of grunge and gangster rap, and the idea of a pop singer releasing a collection of American jazz standards was unheard of. My record company thought I was crazy, she says. They were like, it will never sell, but they were in for another shock. Natalie produced vocal arrangements for the songs with piano accompaniment by her uncle Ike Cole. Her label released an interactive duet between Natalie and her father on the song Unforgettable. You guys, I'm sure a lot of people have heard that. It was in the top 10 on the R&B chart and it went gold and it was number 14 on the Billboard Hot 100. The album rocketed towards sales of 14 million copies. It was a lot of fun watching people panic, she laughs. The radio programmers, the record labels, the stores, they were reporting people are buying this who haven't bought a record in 20 years. Yeah, so that album, it did well. She followed that success with another album of jazz standards titled Take a Look in 1993. The album eventually went gold, while a holiday album, Holly and Ivy, also became gold. Another standards release, Stardust, went platinum and featured another duet with her father on a modern version of When I Fall in Love, which helped Natalie earn another Grammy for Best Pop Collaboration with Vocals. In 1995, she was awarded an honorary doctorate of music from the Berklee College of Music. Natalie Cole's musical success seemed to be unstoppable. Natalie went on to have 23 albums in her career and 9 Grammy Awards. Natalie was married 3 times. She married Marvin Yancey, songwriter, producer, and former member of the 1970s R&B group The Independents, in July 1976 in Chicago. She had a son, Robert Adam Yancey, in 1977, who would pass in August of 2017 from a heart attack. He was a musician who toured with her, and that was so sad. So her and her husband allegedly began taking coke excessively. The coke and her enormous success put strains on their marriage, leading to their divorce, which Natalie called the biggest regret of her life. Yancey and Natalie got a divorce in 1980. He died of a heart attack in 1985 at age 34. Only 34 years old. Boy. In 1989, Natalie married a record producer and former drummer for the band Rufus, Andre Fisher. They divorced in 1995. In 2001, she married Bishop Kenneth Dupree, and they divorced in 2004. Natalie announced in 2008 that she had been diagnosed with hepatitis C. She attributed having the disease to her past intravenous drug use. She explained in 2009 that hepatitis C has stayed in her body for 25 years. She said it stayed in her body, and it could still happen to addicts who are fooling around with drugs, especially needles. She experienced kidney failure 4 months after she started treatment for the hepatitis C. She required dialysis 3 times a week for 9 months. Following her appeal for a kidney on The Larry King Show, she was contacted by the Organ Procurement Agency, One Legacy, in May 2009. The facilitated donation came from a family requesting that if they were a match, their donor's kidney be designated to Natalie Cole. Due to her illness, Natalie had to cancel several events in December of 2015. Her last musical performance was a short set of 3 songs in Manila. Natalie Cole would pass away on December 31st, 2015, at Cedar Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles. Her publicist said that her death was the result of congestive heart failure, which her family said was a complication of idiopathic pulmonary arterial hypertension, which she was diagnosed with after her kidney transplant in 2009. Her family later said in a statement, Natalie fought a fierce, courageous battle, dying how she lived, with dignity, strength, and honor. Our beloved mother and sister will be greatly missed and remain unforgettable in our hearts forever. The legendary Natalie Cole's funeral was held on January 11th, 2016, at the West Angeles Church of God in Christ in Los Angeles. Among the people who were mourning at the funeral was Stevie Wonder, Smokey Robinson, Lionel Richie, David Foster, Shaka Khan, Eddie Levert, Gladys Knight, Angela Bassett, Jesse Jackson, Jackie Harry, Marla Gibbs, Frida Payne, and Lettucey. She was buried at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Glendale, California. There is no public access to her grave. Her grave is located in the central lawn area of the Court of Freedom section, Garden of Honor. Natalie Cole's heart. Her heartbreak led to a lot of struggles in her life. The struggles she faced did not stop her from reaching our hearts. Like her legendary father, she was a legend. She had an impact on a lot of our lives with her beautiful music. She wasn't just the daughter of. She was an amazing icon who will not be forgotten. Rest in peace, Sister Natalie Cole. Talk to y'all later.